This is just on my iPhone, the most basic form of motion capture. It looks very rough, but by the time it gets into this form, it looks a lot better.
Now, this idea that the stars have planets of their own and that those planets might have aliens living on them has been around for centuries.
In this shot, I had a vector drawing of these little solar systems. These were just circles that I created in After Effects and had them move around. And I had a video of myself waving at the camera. This is just on my iPhone in my living room. It looks very rough, but the idea is that by the time it gets into this form, it looks a lot better. I took that video of myself and I duplicated it so that I had 2 sets of arms, and I took out my head so that there was just a face. To make sure that the face followed the basic movement of my body, I just put a couple dots on my chest, which allowed me to track later. This is sort of the most basic form of motion capture that you could imagine. Like if you've seen video of, Lord of the Rings or Avatar where there's people running around with ping pong balls all over their body. Those are all tracking points that can be used to add animation that follows that motion. So for me, it was like, a couple pieces of tape right here were enough to just get the position and rotation of my chest so that this eyeball would follow the motion of my body. This one was digitally painted. I wanted to get away from a very vector look to something that was a little bit messier. I took a single frame into Photoshop and I painted over it with this sort of painterly look, a lot of brush strokes to create the alien and then brush strokes to create each one of these little stars and their planets. And then I used a program called Absynth, which can take the reference image, apply the same style to it of a first frame. So then I asked Absynth to extrapolate from these style frames and apply them to the entire list of frames. And then I composited them together to make the final image. So I had several different elements in this sequence. I believe he was a Jesuit priest who was one of the first people to suggest that there were other planets and that those planets might have people on them. And he ended up being burned at the stake in Rome. And so I put on like a bathrobe and a hoodie and filmed myself getting burned at the stake. And then I added in flames that were like animated with the same process. I made some vector flames and then I painted on top of them and then extrapolated that into this one animated sequence. A lot of times I'm trying to front load the pieces that I make with some of the more heavy animation lifts because I want people to be really drawn in by the visuals. So this sequence is all in the first minute. If I had my druthers, everything that I animated would be like claymation or handmade stop motion. Each of these little peripheral edges were slightly rotated. There was this illusion that her face was 3-dimensional and curved. This is a mixture of After Effects animation and handmade stuff.